Hey everyone, Eric Wright here from the Disco Posse podcast, and I'm going to try out some new gear because one of the things that we're doing a lot lately is incorporating more video into the channel. It's interesting because it adds new elements that I can actually post more stuff on YouTube. It gives a new way for me to, like during the actual recording of the podcast, we do full video. It's easier to engage with people, and if you're doing a new podcast, I highly recommend it because what it allows you to do is really get a lot of that non-verbal communication. Makes it easier, especially with you're talking to people that are brand new to you, so it's a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out a few different things. Now, number one, I've got a MacBook Pro, and it works fantastically. For the most part, we've got a FaceTime camera on there. It does what it needs to do. However, I wanted to go a little bit further. What you're seeing me on right now is actually a GoPro Hero 9. You've seen me show that in the studio itself. I'm in the second studio right now, which is got a different location. So I got a few lights that are around here, very light duty, but it allows me to get set up for regular podcast recording. So now what we're going to try is go one step further. We're going to up our game. So we're actually going to try out the Camlink 4K. And with the Camlink 4K, I'm actually going to connect it up to a Nikon camera, so a true DSLR, and I'm going to see what the difference is. Because truthfully, I've never tried this before. So hopefully, let's see what it looks like. So what exactly is the Elgato Camlink 4K? What this is a way to actually create an HDMI interface and a converter for your camera. The reason you have to do this is because, of course, even though there's an HDMI cable that you can plug right into your camera, HDMI, it's got one of these like super weird, like ultra mini micro HDMI cables, go to a regular HDMI, so I could actually plug this right into a TV or some kind of HDMI interface, except there's no way to actually see the output because there's no converter. So what this is going to do is actually take the video that's coming in and streaming from the camera and actually process it as a live stream. So you can actually directly input it as a camera, and which means this is really what people are using for live streaming. And you can use it for meetings and for other things as well if you're looking to kind of up your game. One thing that's cool, right, the GoPro is superb quality as far as like really good depth. You can change the lens type, you can do a lot of different things. But one of the problems is that everything's completely clear. These are action cameras. They're great for stability, so I can actually even like rattle my desk a bit and it doesn't even really affect the camera view. The downside though is everything is in complete focus. If you want to do something really neat, we have this idea we call depth of field, right? It's where when you bring something close to the camera, then in doing so, it's actually going to take the focus and everything behind it becomes blurry. It's a simple technique, but it's really, really cool visually for the eyes. So if you want to do some more enhanced stuff, that's where you need to be able to get something that has an actual legitimate lens that can handle depth and to be able to do this depth of field kind of capability. Now, if you have an iPhone, you can actually do this a little bit. It's got this portrait mode, but it doesn't do it for video. So we're going to test this out. So it's time to break it out. All right. It's a tiny box. There's not much to it. Price-wise, it's pretty moderate. And of course, if you're up in your game into this kind of an area for video, it's something you're gonna, it's a bit of a bite because it's not just this, right? I've learned this. Every time somebody says you can only get the Camlink Pro, it's super cheap, right? Except that you need the camera to go with it. And by the way, you need audio. So right now, you're actually getting live ambient audio right off of my GoPro. And it's not bad, but when you're used to the depth of audio you can get with a real microphone, so this is my RE320 Electro Voice, fantastic sound. That's what I record the podcast on, that or the RE20. The challenge is that now to get from this interface, you're going to get the ambient microphone off of there. So we're actually going to do a second unboxing later on where I'm going to show you what the microphone configuration is for this. But we're going to start with just the ambient microphone. So there you go. There's actually not much to it. This is the Elgato Camlink 4K, and actually I'll put links in the blog and in the video down below so you can actually check it out and get one yourself. Super simple. It's going to have a USB-A in and out, so it's going to be one male, one female connector, and that is it. Literally not much to it, right? It's going to be USB that's going to come from the camera, and then the interface that's going to go into your computer. And this is going to allow you to actually stream right in. And if you use certain things like GoPro, or not GoPro, goodness gracious, OBS, I think Zoom can even accept the external camera. So this will be set up as an interface, and it'll treat it just like a regular webcam. So let's see what it looks like once we start plugging it in. Now, I know you just did the same thing that I did, is that you plugged in your USB backwards, then forwards, then backwards, and it went in the third time. Welcome to the world of USB-A. That's why we like USB-C. Okay, so simple. We've got the cable coming in. What I need now, of course, is some way to convert it for my actual laptop. Because I'm using a MacBook, and because they've decided that compatibility is an afterthought, we actually need to plug in a converter to get from USB-C to USB-A. Now the other side of the cable is going to be where I'm plugging in the actual camera itself. So I'm going to plug in. So there's our Elgato HDMI, a regular HDMI out. You can actually use this for anything. It doesn't even need to be just a camera. And now let's see what this is like in action. Tight quarters in here. Okay. So if we look at the camera inside, what we've got, if you can, hard to zoom in, of course, because I'm using this. This has got a HDMI. That was mini or micro, and so that plugs into the interface on the camera itself. And then from there, now we plug in here, and now we're going to plug it into the computer.
All right, now the fun part. Let's actually see this stuff in action. Now I've got a very interesting thing that you bump into with a problem when you're running the Elgato. So I've got the Camlink 4K we saw as we did the unboxing. Now this is what you're seeing in the actual view. So I've got a Nikon, this is a D600 DSLR, I've got an HDMI out, I think it's a mini HDMI going to the actual Camlink itself. And the Camlink, I'm looking over here, so I'm looking down the cables like you can see it. But you're seeing now a slightly latent version. Now you don't know it's slightly latent because I've edited it to make sure that that's actually not going to be a problem. But you will find that there's a tiny, tiny example. Now let's just see what that looks like before I actually did the adjustment. This is the natural connection between the video and the audio through the Camlink when I'm recording directly in Camtasia. So let's just see how that looks relative to the edited version when I've actually realigned the audio and the video together. So that gives you an example of what you can expect and what you're going to have to edit for. Now in OBS, I know there's ways you can actually cheat, and you can add a little tiny bit of latency inside the video and audio link to make sure that the sound actually will have a bit of a catch-up. So I'll actually walk through that in a separate video because you may be using OBS, but I just want to show you this is what it looks like now. I've got the live view connected up. Now, pro tip, if you're running the live view on your camera, it may actually be set to an auto off, as it usually is because they want to save the battery. Well, I've got a persistent battery plugged in, so I'm actually plugged right into wall powered with a DC AC converter. This means that I don't have to worry about the battery connection being the limitation to me running a stream. Now, the downside to that, of course, is that it can potentially heat up your camera. So one of the natural things it does is, first, it has a default for saving battery life. It'll have a shut off. I think the default's 10 minutes, so I've had to take that live view and turn it off. Now the downside is, because I'm turning off any safety mechanisms to power it off, it's mostly for irritation than for safety. However, the camera, if you run it for a long period of time, I mean, the sensor heats up, the camera heats up because it's running this LCD all the time. You can notice an issue potentially with overheating. So take care with your camera. Some are better than others. I've read different forums that talk about the risks of each one. And because I'm running the live view, there's no limitation on the size of the recording. That's another funny thing. A DSLR has a limit of 30 minutes in a single recording session generally. And that's because it's a DSLR. It's a camera, not a video camera. So it's meant to be a still camera, and I think there's actually a weird regulation where in order to ship it as a still camera, it has to have a limit on the amount of consecutive, contiguous video that it can run. So anyways, fun fact, maybe true, maybe not, who knows? I may be lying, or maybe just misreading the internet. Wait, the internet lies? I didn't think that could be possible. All right, so check it out. This is the Elgato Camlink 4K connected to recording directly into Camtasia. I hope that this is helpful because you're going to want to get this. If you're streaming, you can go into OBS, you can configure it so that it's your own data source. You can configure your microphones. Remember, I'm actually pulling in my audio right from the microphone. I have the other option where I can set it up and I can plug the microphone right in. I could use a lapel mic if I wanted to, depending on what I wanted to look like in the video. Lots of options. Hope you're liking this. Make sure you check out the podcast. Lots more gear stuff that's coming up because people are digging it. Judging by the viewership, I'm saying that people like the reviews. So check it out. Eric right here. Thanks very much for listening and for watching. We'll see you all later. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to make sure you can get notified when new things are coming up. And go to check out discopossepodcast.com. See ya.